Welcome everybody to another XenTegra networking podcast. I'm your host, Chris Dorn. I'm the practice lead for the networking component of XenTegra. With me today is Abdi Saeedabai, and we will be looking at one of his blog posts that he recently posted about how to accelerate your SASE journey. And I found it very interesting as I was kind of stepping through this, as it uncovered some of the short-term and long-term items that folks that are engaging and looking at different solutions from various vendors and for their organization. Some of those questions that we need to answer and really kind of look at is we need to identify some of the components that are in play here. And I thought this article really did a very good job on touching base on a lot of those at kind of a high level and not making a very technical discussion about it. So kind of calm some nerves when we can take away some of the technical components of these kind of articles to help folks that might not necessarily be in the driver's seat on a day-to-day basis in steering the technical platforms, but some of the decision makers can listen to something like what we're going to discuss here and come back to this blog post to kind of get some kind of insight on some of the considerations that they should have on their table right now as they embark upon a journey such as this. So thanks for being here today. It's a pleasure, our first podcast together. So I'll give you a second here. You can introduce yourself.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity. And hi, everyone. This is Abdi Saeedabai, part of Citrix product marketing team, primarily focusing on SASE go-to-market initiatives. Like to go a little bit more deeper on the blog post we had recently with Chris and deep dive on some areas that may interest you along the way and your journey to SASE.
Excellent. So yeah, I kind of just started scrolling down here a little bit. I'm looking at it, some of the key IT initiatives, to move to this flexible, reliable hybrid work model. What are some of those components that we might be looking at here? I see that there folks are suggested that they kind of steer away from the traditional VPN pieces and then seamlessly migrate their users into these new platforms. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that for us.
Yeah, Chris, before we get into the details on what exactly is a SASE architecture and what it means really today, let's look at the recent key trends we had or we see across the board, talking to different customers or looking at across different industries or verticals that we are facing today. We see more and more applications are moving to the cloud, and we see enterprises need to continuously deliver that consistent service, make sure their business is up and running while they're doing all these migrations. And also at the same time, keep the employees secure, they keep their data secure and still provide the level of seamless experience to the users that they are looking for, as you mentioned as well. And so we see different trends as applications moving to the cloud, organizations moving to a more hybrid workforce model that is rapidly increasing, primarily maybe due to the pandemic, put a really hard push on that, from company initiatives or IT initiatives. And also at the same time, on the risk side of things or on the attack surface side of things, we see those are expanding rapidly, and all these attackers or cyber criminals really trying to leverage the latest technologies they have. So organizations are trying to adopt and cope with those trends as well. So there are really different angles that are really driving the need for some sort of a better or a newer approach to how you secure your data, how you secure your applications, how you secure your users, and really build a strong foundation towards future changes and trends that are coming.
Yeah, they definitely all key components that we need to put on the table there to evaluate, because you're right. It's how do we move to that next generation without disturbing what's already in production and making it as seamless as possible without interfering on our day-to-day business models. So yeah, we have these different components now, and some folks might be coming off of some initiatives that they had already had, and I see it a lot from the SD-WAN piece, but a lot of folks were in that area because they were looking just to reduce costs with the number of links that they had or the providers of those internet providers were giving them. So what they might not have realized is that they could still steer into and check off one of the main components on their SASE journey and not even realize that they were already on that path to implement and take advantage of some additional technologies that we have offered in the stack now to secure their users and their environments. So I think that really kind of comes back to a lot of the components of like seamlessly migrating to that hybrid work model without re-architecting the whole network. So we can't just go in and start pulling cables and everything. We have to build these things in parallel and give some options. And the Citrix SD-WAN component, it's got multiple deployment options. So you might be upgrading firewalls at the branches. You might not have any kind of rights inside of the data center because you're on a team that's not network focused or security focused, but you still have to provide the security for the applications that you're delivering. So Citrix has put out there and given us the opportunity to have multiple different facets and angles that we can take advantage of to be non-intrusive to the current operations that are in place, but still achieve those goals that we might have. I think what are some of the goals that you've kind of seen out there as far as with the discussions that you've had inside of organizations and maybe with some of the C-level folks that you interact with?
Looking at the existing environments or the challenges organizations are facing, many organizations or enterprises, for years, they've been adding more technologies to their environment to keep their data secure, keep their application secure, keep the user secure, correct? So it's been like a stack of different technologies built up on top of each other, which would have made really a complex environment. They have multiple teams. They need a lot of expertise, resources to continuously monitor. And we've seen a lot of recent incidents or attacks that gone through and had a lot of business impact or financial impact or even organizational impact across the board that really made it hard for organizations to cope with these trends and complexity. So I think looking at it from a complexity and operational complexity level is really key element to look at the environment when you look at historically how it's built on and where you're planning to go based on what outcomes you're looking for and how you're trying to solve today's problem and future problems. So really a kind of a holistic view across your environment and really analyzing, assessing what you have and how you can build on top of that, or lay out a better journey, like from a migration standpoint on the right approach or the right solution that you want to migrate to from a journey towards a complete SASE architecture. So I think addressing existing complexities is key, and those complexities could have operational impact, could have security impact. On top of that, how you start building up the right approach. I think that's also another thing that ties you to a really strategic approach that you need to take towards a better, more secure architecture to protect everything you have in your environment.
Yeah, excellent. So really, what are the main components that Citrix would focus on this SASE journey that you're describing here? We might touch on that a little bit to identify that for our listeners.
When you look at a SASE architecture from an end-to-end standpoint and from a completeness standpoint, it needs to have a certain characteristics or elements as part of that solution. So, and based on those, you kind of bring technologies together to achieve those characteristics or the whole end-to-end solution approach, correct? So from security standpoint, you're really looking at a comprehensive cloud-delivered security approach that always considers zero trust at the back of its mind, that you're looking at it from a zero trust approach from a cloud-delivered security. So from application experience standpoint, you need to make sure that regardless of where the users are or where they're located, where they're connecting from, they're going through the same experience. So it's seamless for them. And then from an IT or management standpoint, you're really looking at it from that unification from the management side and also policies that you want to bring together, and how many really consoles you need to log into to really from different technologies to really manage the environment. And the data correlation between these different technologies, how you really correlate data to make better decisions for your business or for your even policies that you're creating. So that really is key. as we see all businesses are getting global, users are everywhere. You need to have that global scale across your business that really connects everything together and provide that local user experience wherever the user is and quickest access to the data in the most secure way. So that is really key element as well as part of a SASE architecture. And then the last piece I want to talk about is the data privacy. So you need to make sure that regardless of where you're connecting from, you're really following the kind of regional guidelines or privacy policies, compliance requirements. If you're connecting from Europe, it could be different than Asia. So you need to make sure that your solution is able to provide all those characteristics or these elements as part of a SASE architecture. Going back to your question, from a component standpoint, there are core components that can deliver this, and there are recommended components as is defined as part of a SASE architecture, which we'll touch later on that, so we can go deeper on those. But these are really key elements that you need to really think about when we are looking at the SASE solution.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, because the Gartner kind of identifies the unified management as you have the security piece and then you have the networking piece. So a lot of folks that already have the networking, I mean, anybody in IT is going to have the piece of the networking in play already, and they're going to have some kind of security laying on top of that. But then Citrix does a little better job of organizing the products into a subcategory set of secure internet access, secure workspace access, the analytics, and then the SD-WAN component. So the SD-WAN kind of being at the pillar, which may have already helped folks embark upon the journey and they didn't even realize it. So I kind of use the analogy a lot, and I've done this a few times already, but I kind of look at it as I look out my window and I have my property, and there's, I could put a fence and a gate around it. And that kind of would, kind of give that a little bit of security for my property itself. But then if I was in a neighborhood, which I'm not, but if I was in a neighborhood and it was, say, a gated community and I had a guardhouse at the front of that community, they give you an extra piece of security that was off-prem, off of my property, but I knew that there was somebody else out there looking out for me. That's how I kind of look at the SASE security components that we have into play here. So it's, I don't have to have one, of course, but, some folks desire that, and that's how we kind of move down the path of securing our environment even in a greater detail. So I really like that analogy. I don't know if anybody agrees with me out there, but it's been a pretty good one to help explain what it is as folks are trying to demystify what SASE is. So again, kind of coming back to some of those secure pieces, I've looked at some Forrester reports and stuff, and I see that folks right out of the gate, they really have that desire for the zero trust network access and having that zero trust edge. And secure workspace access delivers that through the Citrix portfolio. Could you elaborate maybe a little bit more on the secure workspace access and maybe some of the key identifiers there, and maybe some of how it would help folks achieve goals that they've set for their organization?
Thanks, Chris. I think I want to quickly touch on what you just mentioned a little bit earlier about bringing security and networking together. So, defining SASE or as, secure access service edge, what it stands for, it really brings networking and security together and converging networking and security. So all these elements that you mentioned, it has to be part of the architecture when you look at it from a SASE lens. And you mentioned ZTNA. ZTNA is part of that solution as one element of the solution. There are multiple other components fits into that. And when you look at it, a broader SASE architecture from both networking and security, it really what SASE promises is really helping to align security and networking with the unified approach. Especially this becomes much more needed when you are shaping up your next steps or you're building up on what you have. You can accelerate SASE easier and you can get to your goals or the business outcomes we mentioned. But going back to your question, I think the ZTNA piece is really helping to secure access to your private applications that are residing within your environment. Other components of the SASE would allow you to get secure access to your public cloud applications. For example, we have our secure internet access, or we have the analytics piece that overlays or goes over all these different technologies to give you those better understanding of the environment. So I think to pick on the specific technology, it really depends on what use cases you're trying to solve. Again, what outcomes you're looking for really within your environment. And I think it would be good if we could touch on those few of those use cases that we see across the board that could drive or become part of your SASE journey to start implementing those, and then tie technologies to those use cases that could help to solve those use cases. I think that would be a really good approach if you want to go deeper on that.
Okay, that helps clarify it some there, because it might not be necessarily access to those internal applications. It might be, you want an additional broker proxy for the access to those cloud apps. So then we might be looking at the secure internet access and not necessarily the secure workspace access. So there you've just identified, we need to put out there on the table and identify those goals that we're looking to achieve as an organization so that we're successful with it, and then we can branch out upon that. So I guess kind of having that first set laid out and understanding where you're wanting to go with it is key to being successful with it.
Yeah, exactly. For example, when you look at different environments, they may want to secure their digital workforce. That may become key initiatives for them. Could be the pandemic, or could be other reasons for business expansions or global presence. They may be looking at they're migrating applications to the cloud, and really you're looking at securing your crown jewels or business critical applications that you want to protect those. How quickly you can do that, correct? At the same time, you want to address other use cases, or you're doing all these. Another, for example, use case we see across the board is really enhancing the user productivity, the workforce productivity, how you can make things quicker, how you want to provide a better experience. Or from IT standpoint, how you can, for example, simplify the operation for the IT, as we mentioned earlier. That's really key, and how they can easily migrate to cloud from infrastructure standpoint. And on top of all of these, you need to always look at, again, reducing the attack surface. How are you going to keep the environment protected? Going back to your example, from being in a castle and protected by the castle walls, the perimeter is beyond that. It's not like that anymore. So you have applications everywhere, you have users everywhere, you have data everywhere. So how do you really cope with that? Without a holistic approach, without a unified approach, it becomes really complex and hard and even risky to be able to protect your environment. So all these plays, I think, a key role towards the acceleration of your journey to a SASE architecture. If you don't have that holistic approach, you're going to have maybe a lot of complexities to get there from a journey standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. Because, we kind of look at some of these different approaches that folks might take. It might be a networking approach first, or it might be a security approach first. But it's definitely not a all-in-one a turnkey solution. So we have to break it down a little bit so that we can chip away at it with little pieces to help us along that journey in order to achieve the full SASE experience when we're completed with it. So yeah, that's some good.
There is no one size fit for all, like everyone, from how you shape up your journey. It really, on your point, you could take a security first approach. Even within that security first approach, you may decide to deploy the different components, again, depending on your use case priorities and the outcomes you're looking for, versus the networking side. So I think that really is key, to have that flexibility, level of flexibility, that you want to choose the path that works best for your business and the outcomes you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll pop over here, maybe chat up a little bit about, maybe we could do one of the Q&A kind of questions that you presented to me earlier before we started this. But yeah, you were touching on it. This is a good question. It's as you speak with many of your customers, how do you see this impacting them, their SASE journey that they're taking on, and maybe some of the key challenges that they're facing right now?
I think that's a great question. As we see the shift to multiple clouds or public clouds, or even the shift to SaaS applications, you see that more sensitive data is moving to the cloud. You see that data is not residing just in the data center anymore. We used to be, very data center focused. We used to put all our security boundaries around that data center to protect it, and the users had to come back to that data center and go out to the applications through that kind of data center. So that is kind of disappearing or going away as we go forward. So I think the SASE, or the way the approach to a SASE architecture, the way it's impacting organizations, really they're looking at it beyond what they had. They're looking at it from a holistic view that really, how can I protect the environment? How can I really protect my users? How can I protect the applications? The impact is different in each organization. The planning for that is also different for each organization. And I think that's another area that we need to look into when you look at doing something like SASE or implementing SASE in your environment, because you may have different teams owning different technologies. You may have certain budget for certain areas. You may have certain priorities to spend certain budget, in some areas. So really comes back to the planning stage of it as well, that what works for your business.
Yeah, excellent points. And you keep coming back to the goals, and I interviewed some folks at a really big retail shop organization in the U.S., a very big grocery store, if you will. And they identified 3 of their top challenges that they have right now. And their number one challenge that they came back with was technical debt. And that kind of is implied that it's part of the software development life cycle. I can code that in 5 minutes to make it work, but it's not necessarily something we're going to be able to grow off in the future. It could hinder us later down the debt, and we'll have to spend a lot more time later to re-architect that, reprogram it. And I think that it's not, by definition, it's more focused towards software development cycle, but in reality, it's technical debt can be applied to the infrastructure in the organization of securing and providing services in your SLAs and everything as well, because I might already have a link aggregating edge device inside of my organization, but I'm not, and I can leverage that today to help step off and move a little bit faster on my security journey for my SASE components. But I might have to come back to that later and revisit that. But since these are kind of modular from Citrix, then I can pick and choose what I want to work on. So I don't necessarily have to replace my edge devices that are doing my link aggregation today, just so that I can interact with and take advantage of some of the security offerings from the Citrix SASE portfolio. So I think it's important to put that out there, that we can use other technologies from other vendors to help as we generate in that journey and start down those paths. But then we can come back to them at a later date when things are up for renewal, or the end of life approaches them, and then tackle them at that point. So there's really no reason why folks have any kind of real excuse not to be doing something to secure their environments and their users and their data with some of these components that we have available to us from Citrix now. Their second item that they pointed out was cybersecurity, which is really what we're chatting about here all together. And then their third piece was IT workforce skill gaps, so that cross-training in those pieces. So I think that's important to point out too, because keeping everything under one model from one vendor and having that single pane of glass is really important there. So this very large organization, their 3 top items that they are concerned about in their IT challenges that they have presently can all be addressed by Citrix networking. And I think it's a really beautiful offering that you guys have. So
yeah, and then add to that security as well. So it all comes together from a solution standpoint, and that enables ease of use and securely connecting everyone across the board with that unified approach. So I think that's really key, that when you look at the business value versus the technology, so there could be many, many different technologies out there that come with a disjointed approach or band-aiding approach versus an approach that comes to bring things together. And I think when your technologies are bringing things together, your teams comes together as well. I think from a strategic standpoint, from company standpoint, from business initiative standpoint, Historically, I think the way or the reason there was a lot of silos or disjointed approaches because these technologies couldn't talk to each other and really couldn't deliver that kind of unified results or outcomes that was really important for businesses. So I think that's really key that if you build a foundation with that kind of unification approach, your teams also come together along the journey, and they need to work together to build that kind of unified security environment that really would positively impact your business in a short term and long term.
Yeah, definitely. So like you're pointing out here in one of the slide decks here that the pandemic has really changed the way that we work. I mean, how do you see the perception of SASE changing in the last year? And where do you kind of think that's going in the future? Do you think we're still on that same kind of path, or that folks will accelerate their adoption of some of these kind of cloud services?
Yeah, I think maybe initially the way that people were looking at SASE model, like maybe was primarily because of the existence of SD-WAN technologies out there, and building on top of that, maybe that sounds right or the right approach because that's what they had in the environment deployed. But when you look at it as we moved forward in the past couple of years, and there was much more understanding on what SASE architecture means and really how you need to bring these different technologies together, converge networking and security together. I think that kind of perception changed a little bit, and organizations are really looking at it from more strategic lens versus tactical lens. Initially, IT teams maybe were mandated or tasked to solve the expansion of rapidly expanding the hybrid workforce because of the pandemic, for example, correct? So that was a little bit tactical, and they had to make the business, running, and really they had to make sure that the users can access the radar applications, but the security maybe was not top of mind initially, correct? But as they moved forward, they looked at it more strategically. So I think the approach to SASE maybe changed a little bit from how strategically they can build this architecture versus tactical side of it. So I think when you look at it strategically, then you look at your business outcomes, you look at the use cases you're trying to solve, and you pick and choose the right foundational technology that you can build on top of that. That's kind of how it's shifted from past couple of years.
Yeah, and that you point out on another slide here the difference between a single vendor versus like a point product solution, the differences there that you have, and you're kind of touching on that in that last little bit that we were just looking at. So I mean, that's some of the components that go into the time saving and the soup to nuts solution stack that somebody like Citrix can offer. There's a lot of benefit from keeping everything under that one name, and the ability to ramp up and expand and add these different components, especially, the SASE journey, nobody's done with it, in the next couple of years, there's bound to be some new technologies that we bring into that stack that we'll need to be able to ingest into the infrastructure that we built around this. So that keeping it kind of under one platform, again, soup to nuts, I keep saying, but it would help us to consume those services more quickly and to be able to stand that up and offer those to our users. What are you thinking, like the 5-year outlook would kind of be with stuff like that? Do you see us having like multiple new offerings, technically speaking as well? Do you think like we're going to really elaborate and expand upon what's already in there, or do you think they'll combine them or they'll break them apart a little bit? Kind of what are your thoughts on that? Maybe like the 5-year outlook on this.
Yeah, I think the story will evolve, the technologies will evolve. I think it really depends on organizations. Again, I'll always go back to that outcomes, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and how this technology is going to help you get there. But from a solution standpoint, I think more convergence is going to happen down the road. More technology is going to come together, and really to bring that, again, the promise of that unified or that converged architecture that we are looking at. And most likely based on the trends we see based on the recent research that's done across the industry analyst community, we see a lot of trends that are showing that a lot of organizations are looking at migration or transforming to cloud. So that also pushes the SASE initiative because it's a cloud delivered service or is delivered from the cloud. So I think all those initiatives are really driving towards more adoption to cloud and really the need for technology that can solve those challenges moving forward. But I want to mention that, from the journey ahead, one key element also that is important is whatever solution you're working with, you want to partner with them and build up, because no technology, I think, is perfect. You may call a certain technology best of breed, but it's a continuous evolution from technology and from the challenges we are facing out there, from different attacks coming out every day. So it's kind of evolution and continuous journey that is happening. So you want to partner with a vendor that really builds a strong foundation and can go along that journey with you to build that architecture. And it could be some challenges, but you want to really have that partnership that can work with you to build on top of what you have as a base, as a foundation, a strong foundation.
That's great. I mean, that plays right into your blog post here, the SASE maturity hygiene, and how we continually look at it is we just don't set it and forget it. It's something that we have to assess and continually plan around and then ultimately deploy some of those new components as they come down the stack. So having those silo walls broken down inside of organizations and bringing everybody together to help the better group as a whole, that's a key piece there. So, I mean, that's this article really touches on a lot of that at that high level to help folks get a game plan together and to realize that it's not a 3-month project and you're going to be done with it, that this is the new way of doing stuff. As you pointed out, every day we wake up, things are different. We're in a different landscape every day because somebody was up last night trying to figure out how to get the data out of your environment and hold it hostage for some kind of cryptocurrency or whatever they're going to be asking for this week. So, it's a very exciting time to be working in this space for sure. But it's the bad guys versus the good guys, and if we have a partner such as XenTegra and Citrix behind you, we're there to help you have the most secure and highestly available services that we can deliver through the products that we have available to us. So. That's a good, very good, interesting article. It brings to light a lot of it, and I feel like at a non-technical angle that you kind of took with that, and I think a lot of folks will get a lot of good ideas out of it as they begin or continue down the journey that they're already on.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. I think you summarized it really well from the SASE hygiene or the approach you can take. And what we laid out in the blog post is really just an approach, or you could have a different approach in your organization, how you really assess, plan, and deploy different technologies in the environment. But I think having an approach towards implementing a SASE architecture with kind of continuous monitoring and adoption, I think is really key and plays a key role to be successful on implementing the SASE architecture within the environment. So absolutely 100% agree.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we kind of touched on some of the main points here. Folks with Citrix and XenTegra are here to help you on this journey. So definitely reach out to us, and please, I'll share a link to the article when I post this on LinkedIn and everything. But you got some great articles out there, so I really encourage everybody that's listening to this to take advantage of looking at some of the other pieces of work that you've done, Abdi. So thank you very much for taking time out to help steer this and joining me on this podcast today.
Yep. Thanks so much, Chris, and thanks everyone for listening, and really appreciate it. And please reach out to us if there is any questions. So more than happy to help and take it from there.
Awesome. Well, you guys take care and watch out for episode 5 coming over in the next few weeks. So be safe out there, and we'll talk to you guys soon.